You're listening to 15 Minutes of Flame with Robert Phoenix.
Okay, I think we're all synced up now. What's going on, everybody? This is Robert Phoenix, broadcasting to you live from Flyover. Let me get my owl more directly, squarely, just right on my shoulder. You see that? If you're on the video side, you'd see the owl just hanging out on my shoulder. Kind of look like an owl a little bit, don't you think? I think it's the right totem for this phase of my life. What's happening? What's going on out there? It is another day in the Matrix. And I am here to give you the blow-by-blow details as to what's going on and to add whatever kind of interesting commentary that I might be able to share with you along the way. Yeah, a little less threatening. He's a little less threatening. You gotta love owls. Come on now. Owls are wonderful. They're just made out to be such nasty, symbolic, occult creatures. Good morning, Judy. How are you? Let me check the chat room over on the broadcast side, the streaming audio side of things. Apologize for yesterday's show. I don't know quite what happened to it, but it is gone. At least the audio portion. The video portion still lives on, and it is part of the public record of life. So one of the things I didn't talk about yesterday was 9/11. How about that? I talked about everything else pretty much, but I left 9/11 out of the conversation. And that was kind of intentional in some ways because everybody else was talking about 9/11. I thought, everybody's talking about 9/11. Well, I'm going to talk about 9/11 today. And where we are with 9/11 and one of the interesting aspects, commentaries around 9/11. I was cruising on Yahoo is my news source for absolutely crappy mainstream news. There was a time when Yahoo was actually a viable, interesting website. Back in the day, it was the website. It was the go-to. When Jerry Yang started it off, it was an interesting, unique search engine. It really had that spirit of Silicon Valley. And then as time went on, and Google, which is essentially an appendage of DARPA and the NSA, began to get way more traction in terms of its search and its algorithm, Yahoo began losing tons of people. And it almost went completely out of business. Well, they did a deal with Google. I believe Google owns part of Yahoo now, so Yahoo gets to stay afloat. And Yahoo, in a lot of ways, has become a very aggressive sort of political front in terms of its story, positioning of stories. It tends to be extremely liberal. Every now and then, they'll pop a story in there that it is not all that liberal. So I'm on Yahoo today, and about 15, 20 stories down, there is a link to a piece on HuffPost that says Twitter eviscerates Trump for extremely minimal 17 years 9/11 tweet. This brings up a really interesting point. Trump knows who did 9/11. He knows who did 9/11. He knows it. He knows it's not the dancing Saudis. He knows it. Now, he was very clear. Like Trump has become this like mega Gemini because there was the Trump during the campaign and there's the Trump after the campaign. The Trump during the campaign was an interesting character. He's still interesting, but for different reasons. But he was an interesting character because he was hinting at a lot of different things, and he was certainly not hinting when he was telling people that he was going to lock Hillary Clinton up. And it is now 9/12, and I'm still waiting for some arrests. We're on the clock there. On the clock. Yesterday wouldn't yesterday have been a great day to make a bunch of those arrests? Maybe they did. I don't know. I am not privy to the secret codes and the interpretation of the secret codes. I wonder what will happen because QAnon is starting to smell a lot like disclosure. And does it really surprise you that David Wilcock is up to his third eye in QAnon? No. It's starting to smell like disclosure. There's always something. There's always a bit of this or a bit of that or a thread of this or a shred of that. And does it ever really come together? Maybe I'm just not privy to it. Maybe I'm just not seeing it. Maybe I'm not reading the tea leaves and the signs as clearly as some other internet prophets are. So Trump has this tweet, this minimal tweet about 9/11. It's because he knows who did 9/11. He knows where the bodies are buried. He knows exactly where the bodies are buried. He knows that his good friend Larry Silverstein was involved in 9/11. Trump was a real estate guy. Are you kidding me? He was a real estate guy in Manhattan during 9/11. Rudy Giuliani, his right-hand henchman. And by the way, the more that I listen to Trump, his how do I say this, defense of Michael Cohen. He was defending that Michael Cohen took a plea deal and kind of, went a little squirrely on him. He was talking about Michael Cohen like Michael Cohen was a member of his gang. I swear to God. There is a thoroughly gangsterish side to Trump. There is a gangster side to Trump. And I've been saying this for a while, the world is just organized gangs. That's all. Like the high level stuff. It's just organized gangs. And the black nobility of Italy have been one of the most organized gangs for a very long time. They're an old organized gang. When we talk about changing things on this planet, people don't realize like what we're up against. We're up against something pretty significant. We're up against massive amounts of money. We're up against massive amounts of influence. We're up against massive amounts of technology and infrastructure that has been created and will continue to be created to make our world smaller and smaller and smaller and put us in the Saturn cube. Right here, the box, right? If you look at a computer, it's kind of a representation of Saturn in some ways. My computer tends to be more rectangular because I have a wide screen. But if you look at a 12-inch Lenovo or 12-inch Dell with the black screen and everything, you put it on its side, it's a Saturn cube. It's a total Saturn cube. So this is what we're dealing with. Now I want to bring some goodness into today's talk. Mill Valley has pushed back on 5G. You got to love California. There are things about California that I had found really hard to deal with. By the time I was leaving that state, I was ready to leave. I was the canary in the coal mine in California. This was in 2012. By 2011, I was ready to go. The energy had just depleted. It was done. It was gone. So Mill Valley pushed back on 5G. Now, Mill Valley, San Anselmo, and who was? Well, there's one other city near there. Was it not Sausalito? Um, it'll come to me. But I know that Mill Valley and San Anselmo have said no to 5G. They cannot do. They got in there and they hit the city government with close to 200 letters and documents and all the information that clearly states that 5G is dangerous. So good for Mill Valley. Let's give a shout out. I'm just sharing this with you because that is a blow against the system. And I just went through this brief soliloquy about how much we're up against it in terms of actually being able to change things. And it's true, we are. We're totally up against it. And the reason why I think it's an important discussion is because of the number of people that are waking up. And we need to know what we're waking up into. I was watching this documentary on Sun Tzu last night in The Art of War. And we're at war. I mean, we are at war. There's a war going on. People, that's the other thing too. That's part of this cognitive dissonance, is that there is an actual war going on. There's a culture war that's taking place. It's happening right here in this country between the left and the right. There's a war going on. And there is an actual war going on against us. It's a spiritual war. First and foremost, it's a spiritual war. That's number one. Number two, it's an actual physical war, and the physical war is the implementation of sort of taking new ground and defining the rules of engagement in the new ground. Agenda 21, Agenda 2030 is a war. It is a war. It is a war that is being staged and is a war that is being fought without conventional weapons. So the whole idea with Agenda 21 is that they will change the landscape. So let's say, for instance, I just want to break this down. We'll get to 9/11 in a second, I promise. So let's say, for instance, you were somebody who wanted to create this new reality. And the reality is a social reality, socioeconomic reality, a technological reality, all these convergences that are coming together in one place. Let's say you're that person, and you're doing it because you feel compelled, but also there is more than the compelling piece, that you have a moral dictum and you're following orders from somebody who sits right above you, and they're following orders, and they're following orders, and they're following orders, and they're converging together to make a significant change. Perhaps it's the war on ignorance. That's how they would maybe label it. The war on ignorance, the war on stupidity, the war on greed, the war on anti-climate, whatever it is. I mean, they're engaged in a conflict. And at a very high level, the whole idea is to flip this version of civilization. Now, to come in and have men, maybe some women, with guns and armature and tanks and all that stuff that would go along with an invasion or a conflict would be very costly. It would be very bloody. A lot of people would lose their lives if indeed that was the case and people didn't want to leave their homes and come into this new situation. And that would be an unfortunate aspect or manifestation of war. Wouldn't it just be easier to redefine the topography, to understand that you're going to make this change and flip the script and move these people and completely disassemble one paradigm and create another without even firing a shot? Wouldn't that be a lot more in alignment with the type of world